Let's get it. I'm the product market manager on the SharePoint and OneDrive team, and I'm super excited for what we have to showcase to you all today. So before we get started, just a reminder that this call will be recorded and available to everyone shortly after for an on-demand viewing. So of course, we seek respectful but fun and inclusive experience for all the participants as we go through today's session. So Irfan, if you want to kick over to the next slide. And one more after this one. So I also want to share with you all some resources for you all to check out. So last week we had our OneDrive fall event, which is now available for on-demand viewing in case you haven't had the chance to watch all the exciting news that we did share, along with the accompanying blog post for even more details around some of our latest updates. And if you want to hear some behind the scenes action with the presenters that we had on site, we have a special Sync Up podcast with Stephen Rice and Arvind Mishra to really get some in-depth and detailed coverage for the event itself. So for today's agenda, we have a great lineup for everybody. To start us off, Irfan's going to walk us through some of the updates for the OneDrive roadmap, and then we'll pass over to our special topic for today. We're joined here by Trent Green, who's going to dive into a very requested topic around unlicensed OneDrive user accounts. And lastly, of course, our favorite part is to hear from you all with open Q&A. I've seen some people posting in the chat already, so I could already tell it's going to be a very in-depth and great discussion that we're going to have today. So feel free to light up the chat as we go through the session, and then we'll be able to save some time at the end for Q&A. So with that, looking forward to a great session with you all, and I'll pass it over to Irfan to get us started.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. We're so glad that you were able to make it to this month's office hours. And we have, like Rob mentioned, an exciting agenda. I know this was something top of mind during last month. So we brought in our resident expert to give you all the information that you're looking for on the topic. But before we get started on the special topic, I thought we'll just give you a quick... Sorry, was there a question?
I was kind of busy myself, Yeah, I had to run to kind of see my aunt.
All right, sorry about that. So I just want to give you a quick update on our roadmap. I have specifically, 2 or 3 things that I want to talk about. First is around some good news around, the latest things that we have shipped. The shared content delete confirmation is actually shipped. If you look at the leftmost column at the very bottom, I know this was a big one for a lot of our customers, where if you're seeing mass delete experiences where you need to do restorations for all those files that were accidentally deleted. So we now have the delete confirmation that comes up, and we're already seeing a lot of positive results from that. So we're super excited about that. I hope you all are as well. This is going to replace the existing mass delete experience. As I mentioned, these confirmations will occur when files are deleted from File Explorer, when the user is running OneDrive and is not paused. And then the second thing that I want to highlight here is remote app support for Citrix and Azure Virtual Desktop in Windows is also shipping, also fully shipped, actually. So you see that in the leftmost column as well. We're super excited about that. I know that's been a long time coming. We look forward to feedback on any of those features as well. A couple of other things that we would like to highlight from the middle column here in terms of what's coming up and what's we're close to shipping. The first one is around OneDrive colored folders in File Explorer. We've already started shipping. We should be getting close to getting 100% shipped. And we look forward to delighting you all with those experiences as well. And so is offline mode. I know that's been something that a lot of our users have reached out to us. When are we going to get it? We are close to 40%, deployed in production. We look to get 100% deployed by end of this month. So some of you probably are already seeing the benefits of offline mode, and if you're not, you'll soon be by the end of this month. Super excited about that, and keep that feedback coming around those features as well. We're also looking to ship ability for admins to disable presence in file viewer per site. That's also something we've added in the middle column, where you'll be able to, as an admin, disable presence for file view inside of file viewer per site. So that's also another one that was has been asked for, and then we've sort of prioritized and put this in our list. And if there are any questions, any of the other ones, please feel to put those in the chat. And towards the second half of this meeting, when we have open Q&A, if you have questions, we'd love to take those as well. I will, at this point, transition over to our guest for this month, Trent Green. Would you like to just take on and introduce yourself and give us all the details you can share us with the audience on unlicensed user account changes that are happening soon? Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Irfan. Hey, folks, nice to meet you all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. My name is Trent Green, a product manager on the SharePoint and OneDrive team. I'm, as mentioned, here to talk about the unlicensed user account changes and kind of how we're enforcing that moving forward. Irfan, I'm going to steal the screen from you if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll dive right in. Let's first talk about what I mean when I say OneDrive license enforcement here. So I want to start by talking about how OneDrive accounts become unlicensed, what I mean when I say accounts become unlicensed. Today, there's two different ways that accounts become unlicensed. The first is when a user leaves the company. So I go to my Microsoft 365 Admin Center or through PowerShell, and I delete the user account from Enter ID. And this kicks off the deprovisioning process, which means that often the user account gets deleted automatically with no further actions by the IT admin. However, this deletion process can be interrupted by retention periods, policies, legal holds, e-discovery holds, etc. These kinds of holds and retention requirements can prevent the account from being deleted. And this is what we are considering to be unlicensed. The second way that an account can become unlicensed is if an admin removes the user's license. Today, the OneDrive remains usable without a license, and we are changing that moving forward. So this OneDrive license enforcement initiative will begin to automatically archive and enforce unlicensed OneDrive accounts starting in January of this next coming year. And I'm going to talk more about what I mean when I say enforce. So again, I want to take a step back and talk about what the flow looks like today. At a high level, there's three big steps. There's a licensed user and an account. Then it becomes unlicensed in one of the two ways I mentioned before. And then it gets deprovisioned. And then with the asterisk there, you could see that in some cases, when the admin removes the license, we actually don't do anything today. We allow you to keep having that OneDrive account be used to its full extent. I wanted to explain a little more about the deprovisioning process to kind of demystify what that looks like. When I say deprovisioning, we actually try to delete the OneDrive account when we start deprovisioning, but we first look at the retention period, and then we look at retention policies, holds, and then finally goes in the recycle bin. By default, the retention period is 30 days. That can be changed to up to 10 years in the SharePoint Admin Center under the OneDrive retention period setting. Retention policies, I'm sure you are all aware, can be set up in Purview. There's none unless set up explicitly, and those can be used to keep OneDrive accounts indefinitely. Similarly, legal and e-discovery holds, there's none unless you set them up, and those can also, I believe, hold OneDrive accounts indefinitely. And then lastly, after we check for those three things, it will go into the recycle bin, where by default, it will stay there for 93 days before being purged. So those kind of four steps are what I mean when I say the deprovisioning process. So I want to talk about how we're going to change this. Again, this what you're seeing so far in purple is the flow today. Nothing about that is going to change. We're adding three simple new steps. The first is that 93 days after the account becomes unlicensed in one of those two approaches that I mentioned before, the account will get archived. I'm going to say that again. 93 days after the account is unlicensed, it will become archived. That will not require any action on the IT admin's part. It will happen entirely by the service. And that will happen regardless of what other lifecycle stages it is in. So if it's currently being deprovisioned in one of those four deprovisioning steps, it will get archived in those steps. If it's already in the recycling bin, it will get archived while it's in the recycling bin. This is something that the service is doing on your behalf. Additionally, if billing has been set up, and I'll talk more about billing in a minute, when those accounts are archived, they will start getting billed. So the second step, as I mentioned, is because there's 3 steps we're adding. The first is getting archived. The second is that if billing is set up, we will continue to do nothing. If billing is not set up, then we are going to kick off the deprovisioning process for an active user's OneDrive account. So if there's an active user and they have had their license removed and billing is not set up, then 93 days later, we will archive that account and start deprovisioning that account at the same time. So we are no longer allowing you to have indefinite unlicensed accounts that are being actively used. And then the last is just that obviously, if billing is set up, the account will still be archived and will still be billed for. Let's talk about what happens to, or how these accounts behave when they are in this archived state. On the left, you can see a short list of functionalities and that occur while the account is archived. First of all, readability. Just like Microsoft 365 Archive, there's a 24-hour delay to reactivate the account. So therefore, if you want to access that data, you must wait 24 hours before you can access the data by kicking off a reactivation. Second is that the content is searchable, and we are going to be launching an end user search functionality soon where users can explicitly look for archived content. The next 4 checkboxes, e-discovery, retention policies, redundant storage, and the same security you get with Microsoft 365 is the same between the archived unlicensed OneDrive accounts as it is for your active OneDrive accounts today. So all those things you should think of as completely uninterrupted and will work the same as they do today for your active accounts. This means that e-discovery can still find and export unlicensed data. Retention policies will still be honored even if the account is archived while, let's say, a file is being told to be deleted. This is the same whether the retention policy was made before or after the account was archived. And then obviously the durability and security of that data is the same as it is today. The one last thing I want to call out is that while data is in this archive state, it is not going to be visible to Microsoft 365 Copilot. So it's completely hidden from Copilot entirely. On the right side, we can see the cost model. This is the exact same cost model we have for Microsoft 365 Archive today, where the storage will cost 5 cents per gigabyte per month, and reactivation will cost 60 cents per gigabyte. Now, I want to note that specifically in OneDrive, the reactivation will only last for 30 days. After 30 days of being active again, it will go back into the archive automatically. Again, there's no action required by the IT admin to go back into the archive state. I want to talk about billing because I've got a bunch of questions about when billing occurs. So there's 3 requirements here that I want to talk about. The billing will only occur if it has been explicitly enabled by your IT admin. So we are not going to start billing you unless the IT admin has gone to set up the billing explicitly for unlicensed OneDrive accounts. If you have set up Microsoft 365 Archive billing, this is a separate toggle you have to enable explicitly. Do not worry if you've already enabled Archive. This does not mean you'll start getting billed automatically. Second is that we are not going to bill before the enforcement date. So if you would have set up billing beforehand, it would not start. You would not see a single cent until after the enforcement date. And lastly, whenever you set up billing, we are going to bill from that day forward. We are not going to bill retroactively for unlicensed OneDrive accounts. This is what the OneDrive accounts page looks like today. This should be in all of your SharePoint admin centers. You can go to the OneDrive accounts page on the bottom left under reports, and you should see the summary of your accounts. As you can see in the middle of the screen, it gives you the total number of accounts and the total storage used by those accounts. You can take that storage number, multiply it by 5 cents per gigabyte to calculate your rough cost per gigabyte, or rough cost per month for unlicensed accounts once they become archived. You also can click on the download report button to get a full list of all those 820 in this example unlicensed accounts to see which accounts they are, why we consider those ones unlicensed, why they aren't being deleted, and you can then understand more about how to reduce your total unlicensed footprint. In the future, before we start enforcing, we're going to add a second page linked from here. As you can see at the bottom, there's a View More Details link we're going to add an interactive page, much like the active sites page today, where you can interact in the UI with all of the unlicensed accounts. And again, understand why they're unlicensed. You will be able to reactivate and delete from there. And that's a good place to go manage those unlicensed accounts in a nice UI. Again, that will be released before we start enforcing, but it's not available today. Okay, it's a lot of things, so I want to talk about the next big steps, and then we can go to Q&A because I'm sure you all have lots of questions. So enforcement will begin on January 27th, 2025. That is when we will begin to start enforcing. And what I mean by that is we're going to give end users about a month, a 30-day period, when we tell them that their OneDrive is unlicensed and we put it in read-only mode. And then it will get archived after that period. In the steady state, after the enforcement, any new accounts that become unlicensed will have 93 days where we are, before it starts getting archived, where they, it's kind of a grace period in case there's some issues with licenses. But think of it as that 93-day period is there to make sure that you have licensed your accounts, and if not, then you can then they'll be automatically archived for you. So the next steps here I want to highlight are: 1, review your unlicensed accounts. There's an AKMS link here on the page that directs you to your to this page here to go review the total storage and the unlicensed accounts. 2 is enable billing. The page is not available yet, but it will be in November, and you can go and enable billing proactively. And last is start to reduce your unlicensed footprint if you want. The ways we recommend doing so are review your retention period and policies to make sure that they match your expectations. 2, ensure all your active users are licensed so they don't get automatically deprovisioned once we start enforcing. And then delete unnecessary unlicensed OneDrive accounts that aren't under retention. So if you have restored some from recycling bins, or you have duplicate accounts from some multi-geo edge cases, you can delete those accounts today, and that will help, again, reduce your unlicensed footprint. And that is my full spiel. So I know that this is the general Q&A page for the whole call, but I will use it to ask for questions on the unlicensed user accounts.
Thank you, Trent. We already see a few hands up. Let's make sure we go by order. So, Nikolay, how are you doing?
Thanks for this meeting. So I have a couple of questions. One of them is for this unlicensed account. So as by my understanding, the unlicensed accounts also include users who left and their sites were for deletion, but then the site was restored and it's remained in that state. Is this correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yes, if your account was in the recycling bin and then you explicitly restored it back to the active state, that is considered unlicensed and will not be deleted today, but will be in the future part of considered unlicensed. Yes.
And I have another one on this one. So I read the documentation about unlicensed accounts, and it says there's users who have had a license and their account is unmanaged, or the license has been removed, so the OneDrive site stays after that. Does that also include that? So let's say I give you a E3 license, and then the license is changed or removed. Does this mean that the site is still there unless there's an admin action being performed?
Today, yes, the site is still there today, and in the future, we're going to consider that unlicensed, and we will automatically start to deprovision that after 93 days.
So if I understand correctly, if there's no admin action on our end, you will just deprovision the site and we won't be billed for that data.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so just one final thing, just a clarification. For unlicensed OneDrive account, you mean like OneDrive site? You know, dumbing
yes.
it down. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I want to clarify one last thing I said a second ago. If your admin removes a license, 93 days later, we're going to archive that account. And then depending on whether billing is set up, we will make a choice. If billing is set up, we will let you keep that account as is. It will stay archived and it will get billed for. If billing is not set up, then it will stay archived in both cases, and then it will get deprovisioned.
So if we haven't set up a billing, does this mean that all of the accounts, let's say we have thousands of accounts that are just orphans, if we can quote unquote put it this way, do we need to do a cleanup action on our end, or we will just pretty much delete all of those?
If you have those as you call them, orphaned accounts, which just means the license was removed by the admin in your definition here, and you do not set up billing, then they will get deleted for you, and there is no action required. If you do set up billing, keep going.
And this includes the ones that were for some reason reinstated and were left without being deleted, even after the user was deleted. So their site was restored, but for some reason it was not deleted again afterwards. This includes that as well. I mean, we don't have to clean them up. They'll automatically get deleted if we don't have billing set up.
The ones that were previously restored is an edge case where we will not be deleting them because the admin has, by restoring them from the recycle bin, signaled that they are important. And so we're not going to automatically delete those ones. That will be on you to delete. But if you do not want those accounts anymore, and you haven't set up billing, then they'll stay there and they will not get billed. But I would recommend you go and manually delete those if you don't want them.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Cool. Andrew, you're next.
Hi. Yeah, I apologize if this was answered. I actually had something else come up. But for litigation holds. So I remember when I originally looked at the article when this was reported, it said that litigation hold accounts, if an account was on litigation hold, it would not be deleted. Even if we didn't have a license on it. But then I couldn't see how that worked with the billing. Are we just going to automatically be billed for anything on litigation hold? And if we don't have the billing set up, does that mean that our litigation hold accounts are going to be deleted out?
Good question. Litigation hold is part of this deprovisioning step. I call it here under the legal and e-discovery holds. So it is still going to be honored. We are not going to bypass or early delete your holds. We promise you that. If you have not set up billing for them, then they will not be billed for, but they will be in the archive state. So e-discovery will still work on them, but if you ever want to access that content again directly, you will have to set up billing first.
And we will be billed for anything that is on legal hold until it is removed from legal hold and we purge it out.
Anything that is on legal hold and considered unlicensed for at least 93 days. Yes.
Okay. Does legal hold show up under that retention period on the reporting? Because the reporting was kind of confusing because I see retention period and that has a lot of accounts in it, but we also do have a retention period for terminated accounts. So it doesn't really distinguish between this is on legal hold or this is on the retention period that every OneDrive account is set for.
Yeah, so this summary here, each account can actually be in multiple of these of the buckets here, and we in this report we only put it in the top one. So if you want to get the detailed summary, I suggest you download the report and you can see for each one whether it's kept for retention policy or retention period, etc. The legal hold, I believe, is considered under the retention policies, and you'll see that called out in the report you download.
We have 0 under retention policy, so I can tell you that the legal hold is not retention policy. I think retention policies are the policy in purview. Because we would definitely have entries under retention policy if that was what legal hold was holding. So I have active user with no license and I have retention period, and I have a lot of accounts under both of those. I may have to follow up more on that just to figure out how we can divide those out.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not off the top of my head. I'm not entirely sure which bucket specifically those holds are classified under. So please shoot me an email with what you're seeing, and I'm happy to dig in and then update the FAQ on our public documentation with the result of that investigation.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry guys, legal holds in this scenario, they are not counted as the source code that will be built for, and this mechanism will not affect OneDrive sites that have been placed under legal holds, because there are some cases, for example, legal hold where you place the site for an active legal case or whatever, and then the user gets deleted. So does that count as an unlicensed one? Will this fall into this pool? Do we need to take any action on those, or?
If the account has been unlicensed and either the user is no longer there or the user is there but has no valid license, if it's been unlicensed for the 93 days or more, it is considered unlicensed by this process and it will get archived automatically. We are not going to early delete those accounts though. We will always follow this deprovisioning process, including any holds.
So this is actually pretty big because we have some important cases and holds that are, part of users that are no longer within the company. So that's why I asked the question. If, let's say, the user is active, licensed, everything's great, we put on a legal hold, then the user is no longer within the enterprise. Would that fall into the same criteria again?
Yes. If the 92 days after the user has left the company, the account will get archived. It will still have the hold applied, but it will be in the archive state.
So if we want to retrieve data, or the legal team needs to retrieve data from that account, they need to remove it from the archive and also do the export from the legal hold afterwards.
Yes. Now, e-discovery will still work while it is archived. Okay. So you can still do e-discovery, but if you want to access that content directly, then yes, you'll need to set up billing and reactivate the account to access that content.
Oh, no, I'm just interested about e-discovery because the legal team uses e-discovery to pull out content from sites that are under legal hold. So as I understand, you're saying that this will still be functional without any additional administrative actions necessary?
Yes, this will still be functional. The export might be slower than usual because we have to go get it from archive, but yes, this will still function.
Do you plan to put any in the documentation about this, any recommendations for such cases or legal hold scenarios, or so that we can at least forward to the legal team, or maybe adopt as best practices? This will affect a lot of historical cases that are grandfathered in.
We have some in the documentation today. Our recommendation remains the same, which is we suggest you to set up billing so you can access that content if you need to. And then the archive state itself should not affect the legal process except for when you need to access the entire OneDrive site.
Outside of the e-discovery content.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'm going to keep moving here. Christina?
Hi, I have a short question regarding OneDrive report. Does this report shows data with included versions or only the last version of the file from OneDrive?
It includes what we consider to be the disk used of the entire site, which should include all the versions.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Keep moving. Kamana?
Yeah, I have a question on is there any way we can manually remove the OneDrive association without deleting an account, basically?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Manually remove what?
Okay, I think I'm asking question. Is there any way we can manually remove the OneDrive association with the account? For an example, if I remove a license from the Exchange Online, it removes all the mailbox association. Similarly, the admin can run some commandlet or PowerShell, something we can remove the association with that particular account, just delete everything on the OneDrive. I don't keep anything like that.
I suspect there are ways through legacy means, but I would not recommend doing so. In general, I'd say no. There's no suggested way to unassociate a user from its OneDrive account without deleting the user.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
You, Tony?
I have several questions. I'll try to keep it short, but when you say license, you're not being very specific here. So is that meaning that you've unchecked the SharePoint checkbox on a particular user? Or does that mean that you've removed an M365 license of some sort? Or what is the exact trigger for this activity?
Yeah. So when I say license here, I mean any license that has the OneDrive and SharePoint offerings attached to it. If you were to uncheck the SharePoint option from, let's say, the Microsoft Admin Center, for example, but you have the valid license on that account, it will still count as a validly licensed user.
That's what I figured. Okay. And does the access then still remain unless you remove the license entirely in
Correct.
that situation?
Yep. Correct.
Like, so you could still be in a circumstance where you don't have a SharePoint license, you do have an M365 license, so you can still get to the OneDrive.
Yep.
Okay.
If the license itself that you have associated with, let's say, Trent, grants you the right to have your OneDrive, even if you uncheck the SharePoint option, the license grants you that, so we're not going to count you as unlicensed.
Okay. I mean, the feedback request is simply we need 2 checkboxes, one for the SharePoint side, one for the OneDrive site, as opposed to one that covers both. But we can take that to another conversation.
Good feedback. Thank you.
Yep. Nick, you're next. I believe you're muted. If you could just unmute and ask the question. Thank you.
Yeah, the last person asked the same question I was going to ask, so thank you.
Nadia?
I have 2 questions. I know we've been talking about like litigation and legal holds, but in terms of retention policies, if we have, for example, a 5-year retention policy set up, will we get automatically billed for the 5 years, or will we not get automatically billed if we don't have it set up? And only if we want to access it, do we have to then reactivate and pay for storage?
You will not get billed until you explicitly set up billing. So you can see here the conditions of when billing occurs after you explicitly enable unlicensed billing, different from M365 archive billing. So you'll not be billed until you do that. But yes, if you want to access that data within those 5 years, then you'll have to set up billing first to then reactivate the account.
Okay, and then if we want, the second question is if we want our end users to be able to access that data, for example, somebody keeps a bunch of stuff on OneDrive, they leave, the team is still using it, we would have to pay for the archive so that those users can continue to access it during that time.
They will have 93 days to access the data before we archive the account. But yes, if you want to have that data regularly accessed, you'll have to either reactivate the account often, or what I would more suggest is you move the active data to either an active OneDrive account or a SharePoint site.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, Josh, you're next.
Awesome. I think I heard 2 different things regarding legal hold. So I'm going to ask a scenario. If I have 10 users on legal hold, 100 gigabytes each, so 1 terabyte of data is on hold. Yep. And I have no other OneDrive users that are unlicensed.
Sure.
Do we need to pay for that?
You will. It depends on what you want to do with that data. If you only plan on
just e-discovery and grabbing the data, no further access by end users.
Then no, you will not need to set up billing for it.
Okay. And so now let's say along with those 10 users on legal hold, I have 10 users that were set to retain 2 years of data. So now 2 terabytes of unlicensed users, 1 terabyte on legal hold, 1 terabyte on, the 2-year retention.
Sure.
So I would have to set that up. I'd have to set up a billing account. Am I now being charged for all 20 users or just the 10 that are not on legal hold?
You are now being charged for all 20 users.
Well, that seems like a weird pricing model.
The intent here is that anytime you have unlicensed data, it's not being paid for. It's free data today that we are offering, and we have had this for a while, but we are trying to crack down on this. And so you can get away with not paying for it if you only have e-discovery needs. But once you need to access that data, then yes, all the unlicensed data that's not being paid for will start getting billed at the archive price.
All right. So the e-discovery component that we pay for in our licenses or as an add-on does not count then for the actual storage anymore. It used to.
The e-discovery component pays for the e-discovery actions and exports. It does not pay for the underlying storage.
Okay. And then does that billing start, you said it starts in January 2025, but since nothing will be archived for 93 days, does it really start 93 days after January 2025?
That's a fantastic question. And I should have added a slide with a timeline there. So let me try to verbally do it to the best I can. When in the steady state, so let's say we're in 2026 now, if a new user becomes unlicensed, what's going to happen is it's going to have 93 days before it gets archived. However, 60 days after it's unlicensed, the user is going to start seeing banners and UI on their OneDrive saying that they are now in this read-only mode and are going to be archived at the 93rd unlicensed day. So it's kind of a two-step enforcement. At day 60, it becomes read-only with some UI, and then at day 93, it gets archived. When we say we're going to start enforcing on January 27th, 2025, what we mean is we're actually going to start showing.
Can't make up my mind, right? Yeah, I'm going to the bakery.
Sorry. When on January 27th, we're going to start showing the read-only UI for anyone who's been unlicensed for 60 days or more. So we're going to start kind of in the middle of that UI, showing that you have 33 more days to either license the account or get archived. So nothing will get archived until, rough math in my head, the very last day of February, or a couple of days into March. Did that answer your question?
Yes, but that definitely needs to be updated in the documentation. Based on everything we read, it sounded like we had till March, like the end of March, based on 93 days. And what you're saying is end of February, everything happens. So that needs to be handled. I'll go back into the hands up loop because I have other questions, but I'll let other people ask. Thanks.
Yep, good feedback. I'll update the documentation for that.
Thank you. And we'll take a couple more questions on this topic, and then we transition to regular Q&A if you have other questions as well. So if you could just ask your questions related to this topic in the chat, we'll be sure to address that in the chat as well. So I'll just with that, I'll just have Nick, you're next.
Hi guys. Firstly, is it possible, I turned up a bit late, is it possible to make the slide deck adjustable on our end so I can just quickly go through the slides and see what I missed? And the second thing is, it's not related directly to this archiving stuff, but recently I've had several instances of OneDrive issues with opening files for end users, and then when jumping on their device, OneDrive's been off or some other issue, reset OneDrive and various other actions. In some of these cases, I've ended up unlinking the account, then re-adding it, and it seems to take sometimes hours and hours and hours to actually process all the changes, but actually start downloading anything. We're just looking to obviously download the available online only. But what I've been seeing is when there have been issues lately, is that it'll sometimes won't happen until the next. So tell people just lock their machine and wait till the next day when they leave for the day, and it's not until the next day that they can actually see and then access the files. Just wondering if there's anything. Looking around, I can't see much about it. But yeah, just wondering if you've got any insights, or is this a new issue, or?
Yeah, please.
I can comment on this one. Yeah, that does not sound expected. So have you already opened a support ticket, Nick?
No, I haven't, no.
Okay, if you can open one and then reach out to me so we can make sure it's investigated and I can understand what's going on, that would be awesome.
Cool, thank you. And the other thing was options around, or either a change or options around OneDrive notifications and errors to end users, and this is for both PC and quite importantly for Mac as well. Mac users seem to never notice that there's, one of the various issues, syncing issues, and of course one of the big ones is illegal characters. I've been attempting to try and train people even manually, and every time I talk to them, just telling them to once a day check up in the system tray to make sure that OneDrive's actually running. But people just don't. In Mac, the X is a grey, the same grey as, or slightly different grey to the OneDrive cloud, whereas obviously in Windows it's a red X on the icon, which makes it slightly more visible. But yeah, I'm just wondering if thoughts around that, because it's just, yeah, we just noticed lots of people just don't notice it.
Yeah, great question. So first, on the legal characters on Mac, we actually have some changes rolling out that should help there. So hopefully there will be less users in the error state. So stay tuned for more on that. In general, though, yes, we are looking at ways to make sure the different states we have in the sync client across Windows and Mac are something that users understand and notice. And so it's something that we're looking at. I don't have anything specific to share yet, but we know we've heard this feedback, and so it's something we're looking at.
Okay.
But specifically for the Mac characters, that should get a lot better very soon.
Okay, cool. Because I mean, even if it was that's built in, you're able to send an email after, say, 2 or 3 days of an error being present, for example.
Got it. Yeah, that's an interesting suggestion. Right now, we're not exploring anything that's outside of the sync client, but yeah, thanks for sharing the feedback, and that's something we'll discuss within the team.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you, Trent. I think there are lots of questions in the chat, so I highly encourage if you could just take a look at those, but we'll transition over to any questions you might have, general questions around other areas. Feel free to unmute and ask questions. Chase, next.
I was still sort of related. I noticed in the slide deck, it said EDU. So is this all basically moot for EDU accounts for school districts that are A1, yes. A3, A5 licensing?
If you were considered an EDU tenant, and you'd probably know if you were, then this will not apply to you.
Okay, good to know. Because I was going to ask about, does the A1 account still count and that kind of stuff, but it sounds like it doesn't really matter. I was going to also say, if we just add a license back, does that incur those costs for reactivation? Or if it's like, it's an account that's not deleted, we just remove the license because they're disabled, they were going to be terminated, but now we just add a license back to the account, reactivate the account. They now have a license. Does that still count as bringing something out of an archive state where then you need to do this reactivate thing?
If you assign a license, it will reactivate for you for free in 24 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Joseph, you're next.
Yes, how does this process play with the existing mechanisms for when somebody leaves the organization and their manager gets a notification to take over the OneDrive?
Yeah, so that happens within the retention period, which is the first step of the deprovisioning process. So the manager will still get that email, will still get the assignment. However, if your retention period is longer than 93 days, so if you change it to let's say 10 years, the manager will still get the email, but after the 93rd day of being unlicensed, that OneDrive will get archived. So the manager will still have access, but it will be archived, meaning that if they want to actually get to those files, it'll need to be reactivated first.
And if we don't have billing turned on, then it's deleted after 93 days?
No, it will not be deleted. I'm going to jump back and say we will always honor the deprovisioning steps. So we'll always honor the retention period if it's 10 years, but it will stay archived while it's in those 10 years. If you want to get it back, you need to reactivate, which means you need to set up billing first.
Okay, so if we have a retention period set up in SharePoint Online that's 3 years instead of 93 days, then essentially we're keeping everything for 3 years before the unlicensed stuff kicks in.
No. Sorry. Let me jump to this one here. So 93 days after it becomes unlicensed. Unlicensed is when the user is deleted in this case. 93 days later, it's going to get archived. That's nothing about the settings you have is going to change that. But since you have a 3-year retention period, for the 2 3/4 years after the 93 days, it will be in the archived state whilst honoring the retention period. Did that make sense?
And if we don't have the billing set up, then we're just not paying for that archive mailbox or OneDrive site.
Correct. You won't be paying for it, but you also will not be able to access it because it'll be archived.
But it'll still be available for e-discovery.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, guys, can you add me to the meeting chat, please? I can't. I'm not a member of the chat.
Do that, Nikolai.
Sorry, Nick Hootley.
Sorry, I didn't get you asking folks to. Nikolai, you're next. And if there's a question in the chat, we'll look at that as well.
So I have 2 questions about the other features, but something really important to clarify here, because you mentioned archiving and the billing. So we have set up billing for the M365 archive. Is this related to that in any way? If we have M365 archive billing, does it count as configured billing, or do we need to do it exclusively for this functionality?
Unlicensed OneDrive account billing is going to be an exclusive, separate enablement. So if you have archive enabled today, do not worry, you're not going to get automatically billed. You'll have to set up a second checkbox essentially once you release that in November.
Okay, and the archive sites will not appear in our M365 archive UI or anything. You use the term archive in your own way. It's like a Microsoft archive. It's not ours. We won't see them populate there.
It will be a separate UI. So as you can see in this page here, there is still up in the top left corner of my screen, the archive sites page under the sites left nav entry. That is where you manage your archived sites. And in the page we're on now, the OneDrive accounts is where you'll see your archived OneDrive accounts.
Okay, understood. Thank you. And now about the other features. Thanks. So the sync admin reports export, we've discussed that in a couple of meetings before, and you said that you're going to move towards the solution with the Graph API being available through the Graph API. Do we need to do anything specific to be part in the preview? Because as far as I understand now, it's currently in preview. Do we need to enroll our tenant or do something about that? And if so, is there any documentation or anything that we can use, like an example, or will there be documentation in the calls, like adding additional calls to the Graph API?
Yeah, I can take this one. So we're actually not using the Graph API. We're using Microsoft Graph Data Connect, which is used for some of the other OneDrive and SharePoint data. The export capabilities are available today in public preview to all tenants within worldwide. And I'll paste the documentation here in the chat if you haven't seen it yet. It goes through the step-by-step guide on how to set it up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And another thing that we discussed, but it was present in the previous OneDrive roadmaps a couple of meetings ago, but I don't see it anymore. It's about the prompt that prevents users from deleting shared data. Like if you have something synchronized that belongs to other people or it's shared, when you delete it, you get a prompt asking you for confirmation. Now, I know you did a little bit of a update on that, like a recall of the prompt, but users are still able to kind of go through it, like do the checkbox opt out for future warnings. And I remember we discussed introducing controls for administrators to prevent users from opting out. Is this still anywhere on the backlog or on the roadmap, or will it be?
Yeah, we just recently shipped some improvements to the experience where it shows the dialogue immediately for shared content. So that's something that just recently shipped in the last week or so. In terms of the admin controls, I'll have to follow up on that one. But if you want to reach out, we're happy to chat more about the delete space because that's something we're continuing to improve on, and we'd love to get more feedback there.
Okay. Can I mail you or something about this?
Yeah.
You guys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Tom, you're next.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So one of my questions was actually addressed, it seems. That was a question about separating out shared SharePoint spaces in the OneDrive add shortcut feature. But I had one other question, and that was if we work with a lot of customers, small business customers and so on, and they don't necessarily, for example, if they have the Microsoft 365 standard license, they may not necessarily have computers that are managed either by AD or by Intune. And if they install the OneDrive Sync client to sync business data onto computers that are not managed by anything, I was wondering if it was possible to have the OneDrive Sync client observe the cloud sync policies so that we could set policies that when the OneDrive Sync client signs in, reads those policies and can be managed that way.
Hey, Tom, can you repeat again the policies you're referring to? I think I missed that.
Yeah, so currently if people have, for example, if they have non-managed computers, it is possible today to use Cloud Sync on config.office.com to configure Office policies for the Office programs, so that those are observed even if the user installs and signs into the business version. So I was wondering if that was possible to have policies there for the OneDrive Sync client as well, and have the OneDrive Sync client observe those.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's something we've discussed. It's on our backlog, but we haven't invested in that yet. But it's helpful to hear the feedback that would be useful in your scenario.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Thank you. All right, we got 5 more minutes. Steve, you're next.
There are multiple Steves, so it's not
sorry.
me. Is it me? Okay. So I put in the chat that I'm getting some reports from our Mac users wondering why, and yes, they're geeky. The group containers OneDrive folder, I think it's a cache, is taking up so much space, and I'm just trying to work through. And again, this can be a support case. I'm trying to work through whether that's a cache of what they've set to keep on their device locally, whether it may be a symbolic link, because with not a lot of disk space, that we're just wondering if it's extra stuff being taken up.
Yeah, Steve, that's a great question. So today, the way Files on Demand works on Mac, it appears as though we have like 2 versions of the files on disk, but that's not actually taking up double the space.
Okay.
We are making some changes to how that all works, which will make it less, like it won't give that impression anymore.
Excellent.
But
excellent.
If you want to learn more specifics on why it doesn't take up double the space, I know we have that thread with Jack and Carter, and Jack is definitely the expert on that. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Gaia.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Kevin, you're next. Kevin Miller. You're on mute.
There we go. Sorry about that. With all the permutations of everything with the Microsoft 365 archive for the OneDrive accounts, my head's spinning. But anyhow, there's one question I have. So if you do have billing set up for the archive, right? But the client says, oh, I want this guy archived, but I don't want this guy archived. You delete the users, you're deleting users, right? Is it always do you have a choice of you want to archive this account or not?
No, unfortunately, there'll be no choice. If the account is unlicensed for 93 days or more, it will be archived. You can reactivate the accounts as needed to get back to the data. But if you have data you want to use regularly, I highly suggest you move it to an active OneDrive account or to a SharePoint site.
No, it's not that. Like some of the users, they don't care about the data. They don't even want it archived. That's what I mean.
It will get archived if it's unlicensed for 90 days or more. Are the users licensed? I'm confused.
Yeah. So a user's there, and it gets deleted, right? But the owner of the company says, "I don't care about this guy who was a summer intern. I don't even want his OneDrive archived."
So you want the data to be deleted? You're saying?
Yeah, completely gone. Yeah. We don't care about. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. So if you delete the user and there's nothing preventing deletion, it will go in the recycle bin, and it will be archived while it's in the recycle bin. But as long as you don't restore that from the recycle bin, you won't even see it. So it'll be completely hidden from you.
Okay, but other users, they do want to keep it archived. So that it goes through the normal process. You're saying?
Okay. Yes. Now, if someone wants an old user's OneDrive to stay around in the archive state, it will need to have either a retention policy or something. Otherwise, as soon as you delete the user, it will start to deprovision the OneDrive as it does today.
Right. That's fine.
Okay.
All right. Very good.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you. We'll take one more question and then we'll call it a day. And if you have questions still, please put those in the chat and we'll look at those. Vijay, your last one. Go ahead.
So I just want to understand, like, what will happen on the day when the legal hold is removed from an, unlicensed account? Will it be deleted right away, or will it still be archived for further 93 days and then get deleted?
So it may already be archived while in the legal hold, depending on the timelines you have set up based on your retention period. But if you remove the legal hold and it's been unlicensed for 93 days, and there's nothing else preventing deletion, then it will get immediately deleted.
Okay, so if it's past the archival date of 93 days, then it will get removed. It will get deleted once I remove the legal hold. Right away.
Yes. Now, you may have other mechanisms that prevent deletion, such as a retention policy, but assuming there's none of those, then yes, it will be deleted the day you remove the hold.
Okay. And if you don't offer archive, will still the unlicensed account go to archive for 93 days?
Yes, there's no opt-in or opt-out of this unlicensed archiving process. It will happen on your behalf without any actions.
So that's archived for 93 days and then it goes to recycle bin and there it stays for 93 days and then it gets deleted, right?
Archive will happen after 93 days of being unlicensed. It will stay in archive as long as the OneDrive is around. So if it's around for 25 years because of retention periods and policies and settings and such, then it will be in archive for 25 years.
So when you say archive, you mean the recycle bin, right?
No, archive is a separate state, almost like a lock on the site.
Okay, so when does it move to recycle bin then?
This process the new unlicensed enforcement does not modify the process. So by default, if you haven't changed any settings or policies or holds or anything, it will go 30 days in the retention period, and that will get assigned to the manager, and then it will go to the recycle bin after that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Right. Yep. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate everybody. This is thank you, Trent, as well. There were a ton of questions and a lot of interest, as you could tell. I have a couple of things that I want to highlight. So to attend these monthly office hours, I just want to make sure that there's a blog post that gets sent out by Rob Nunes that takes you to aka.ms/OneDrive office hours. I'm going to share it in the chat here. So this is what you need to register for the monthly office hours. And once we're done with this, we record these sessions as well. So this will be available to you through our community platform, where all the recorded videos for all the office hours will be available, including all the content and Q&A. So that's for all of you. So our goal is to keep this as a knowledge base for all of you. So they can leverage it even afterwards if you were not able to attend this session for any reason. So those two things are very important. So please don't attempt to attend the office hours to our previous mechanisms or other channels that you might have on Teams. This is the way that we will do it moving forward. And last thing, if you have any other suggestions, any other topics that you would like to hear from us, from our experts, we'd love to hear that from you as well. This has been a great honor for us to have this dialogue and learn a lot from all of you. So keep that coming, keep the feedback coming. Give us more ideas on what topics you'd like to learn more about. With that, we'll wrap up and we'll see you next month. Have a good one. Thank you.